back in.
What's up, my brother? How are you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. It's Friday afternoon. The sun is shining. It's been raining all week, and today it's not. So that's fucking great.
That's good. That's good because you are in
Long Island, New York.
Long Island.
Yep. Not cool enough to be New York City, but cooler than New Jersey.
Dude, I can tell you what, man. I am in Miami, and it is already summer. I am so pumped, man.
Dude, every time I see you post shit, I'm like, fuck this guy, man. I wish I was down there. Miami's great. I love Miami.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. I think that traveling so much, I probably talked about this ad nauseum, but I became so aware of myself that for me, weather is everything, man. I'm like, I don't care. I just want to live where the weather is perfect. And I realized that when I was in Sicily because it got so hot there. It felt like walking on the sun. And after a while, I just realized I caught myself looking everywhere in Europe, like, where's the best weather? Where's the best weather? Because I knew I could not stay in Sicily. I was like, this is way too hot. It's
too
brutal.
hot?
It's just too hot, man. It's just, are you kidding me? I mean, now what I really gained an appreciation for is how culturally the proximity to the equator kind of dictates culture. And so
Definitely.
what I figured out was that in Southern Europe, they have siesta, right? They don't have siesta in Northern Europe. Yeah, so yep. 12 to 4 in Sicily, the world shuts down. In Spain, it shuts down. That's not because they're lazy people. It's because it's hot, and it's hot.
Laying brick at 110 degrees is
there's no way that you're going to go to work when it's that hot and you don't have air conditioning. Even in Sicily, I knew people that didn't have air conditioning. So, anyways, I realized it would, and not only that, people stay out later. So you're out because you get all your socializing and all that done when it's not so hot. So people would stay out to dinner till midnight. You'd sit down at a table and you would sit there in Southern Europe and you would sit at that table for 3 hours talking, drinking, smoking, everything. So
the late dinners is something. My wife is from the Dominican Republic and I lived there for a little while, and they do the siesta and and I love it all. Except for the late dinners. I don't like eating dinner at 9. I mean, on a weekend and you go out with a bunch of friends and you're going to drink some wine, you're going to have conversation. Sure, cool. But the concept of eating dinner every night at 8 o'clock, to me, it's like, bro, and by 9:30, I'm sleeping. You know what I mean? The way my body operates optimally.
Me too.
Is I got to get food in me 5, 6 o'clock, and then that's it. I don't want no more food.
Dude, me too. I'm the same way. And so it's a trip then. And one of the things they say is that the reason Northern European cultures are so dominant, have been so dominant throughout world history, is because of this very thing that we're talking about how, people in Northern Europe just work because the environment allows them to do that. What else are you gonna do? It's freezing outside, right?
Yeah.
You might as well sit in the factory or sit in whatever and work. Whereas it's too hot to do that in Southern, or the Dominican Republic or Brazil or, Central America, anywhere like that. So that's what I'm saying. You're talking about a culture like the Dominican Republic is just like the same culture in Southern Europe. That's very interesting, And so go ahead.
I saw something recently, on one of the social networks, that the Dominican Republic was recently voted the highest ranking population in mental well-being in the world. And I think it has a lot to do with what we're talking about. I think that there's a certain level, it's so fucking hot they economically, they're not like, you know, the opportunities aren't there. There's definitely corruption and stuff, but I think there's like this general sense of like, fuck it, man. We're going to do the best we can. We're going to make do with what we got, and we're going to have a good fucking time. And like,
Yes.
I lived there for like a year, and I lived in different spots. I lived like in the city environment, and then I lived on like a farm with no electricity and no hot water, with like chickens running around the ground. And like, you've never seen, like here, everybody's like, you know, there's this poverty and like people are struggling. And like over there, they don't have a pot to piss in. They don't have any money, but these people are the happiest people ever. They're just like, you don't miss what you never had, and it's not even a thing. And it's always like baffled me. It's always baffled me, like the way we look at countries like that, and we're like, oh, third world countries, and they don't have this, and they don't have that. But meanwhile, like, we're all fucking killing ourselves because, you know, we can't make $800,000 a year or fucking get a Tesla or whatever it is. And they're chilling.
It's such a culture clash. I mean, you know, New Orleans is like this too. New Orleans is very much, it's a hot environment. And it's the same thing. People are just like, man, we just want to party. We just want to listen to music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We want to listen to music, eat good food, and drink. And that's the culture, you know? And,
for a good time, not a long time.
Yeah, it's all about having a good time. And then, you know, I remember I worked in the casino industry because I'm from Vegas, and I was like a pit boss and a craps dealer and all that on a riverboat in New Orleans. And we had a bunch of guys come down from Jersey, a bunch of people. And there was such a culture clash. There was such a culture clash. It was so, because the people from New Orleans were so laid back, and people who came from Jersey were so uptight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's it like in Vegas? What's the attitude? Like, I mean, I've been there a couple of times just hanging out, but like, I would venture the guess that like people are kind of like, maybe like there's like depression and like people are stressed because like it's such the culture of gambling and nightlife. But is that the case?
Vegas is a very, you know, you got to realize I left Vegas like in the early 90s. So I mean, I left after I graduated college at UNLV in 91, I left. So I never went back. But at the time when I grew up in Vegas, basically the movie Casino, that was my life. So
yeah.
Very, very, but it was very transient, you know? And so there was no like Vegas culture per se, because it was what other people brought with them. But you know, casinos are like, I had someone describe it to me. They're like the new version of like going to work in the mines. You know, you go in there, there's no creativity. You're standing on your feet. You're just dealing with drunk people all day. You know what I mean? It's not a very fulfilling lifestyle. You make money.
Definitely not a good
You made a lot more money back then, you know, but there's just so much in a casino. My experience was there's just so much tension, you know? It's like everyone's drunk. You're on your feet all day long.
At any moment, some crazy shit could pop off.
Yeah, but it's just more like it's a very structured environment where, you know, the way it works is you have systems. So the dealer comes on at a certain time, deals X amount of cards, does it this way, from everything is systemized so a robot could do the job. And the idea is that so a pit boss could look across all the dealers and see if something is amiss, because everybody's doing it the same way. It's very standardized. And that's not a very cool environment. Who wants to work like that?
It's like corporate.
You're just a monkey. Yeah.
It's like corporate America meets Sodom and Gomorrah from the Bible.
Weird, right? This weird mix, man. Weird mix. So, you know, it's
fuck Vegas.
Fuck Vegas. That's why I left. It's this weird, hot, miserable place. You know, some people like it, but I don't like it. There's there's nothing about it that does it for me. But it is interesting where you have these like cultures and heat. And so now being in Miami, I'm back to, this is after the UFC fight, you know, went to the UFC fight where Chito Vera fought and got out of the fight. And my buddy was like, come on, Brazilian guy. And he's like, come on, let's go grab something to eat. I'm like, grab something to eat. It's fight started at 10 o'clock. It's freaking 2:30 in the morning. I'm ready to go to bed. Yeah. He's like, come on. I'm like, all right. So we go down to not downtown, but like kind of midtown, an area called Wynwood. And he's like, come on, there's this great sandwich place. I'm like, who's open? Dude, we get in there. It's 3:30 in the morning and it is packed with people wanting sandwiches, dude. I'm talking like 150 people waiting out the door. That's nightlife, man. This is a very.
What'd you get?
I don't know, like some avocado fucking croissant, something. I don't know, man. I don't know. I was so late and I was so tired and I was exhausted.
Try to be polite to your buddy, but you're like, fuck this.
I was like, I just want to be in bed, man. UFC fights for me, man. I've been to like 200 UFC fights. And one of the things that always is worn on me is how late you get done. But late for me is getting done on Vegas time, which is you're done at like midnight or 1:30 or 1 o'clock, and then you get home and it's like 2 o'clock. This, because we're on the East Coast, was the fight started 3 hours later than West Coast time that I'm used to. Oh, dude, you don't get home till 5:30 in the morning. I'm like, that is too late for me, man. I'm like, no. I am.
Plus, you're in Miami to where like it's going nonstop.
It's going nonstop. The traffic's a nightmare. You got to get home. You know. But it was cool, man. It was a really good fight. So
I'm sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So, dude, we were talking about it. So you've been watching freaking Shogun?
Oh my god, it's amazing. It's so good. I think it's like the Japanese Game of Thrones. It's awesome.
Gosh.
Have you watched the whole thing? Are you caught up?
No, I'm not. I'm like 3 or 4 in, but the writing is so freaking good. It's so radical. I mean, the writing is actually what pulled me in because I started watching it and I was thinking, it's going to be another samurai. You know, I love samurai, but I thought, it's just going to be another samurai. No, this is like you said, this is like Game of Thrones shit. I mean, the writing is so deep.
Yeah, and the interplay between the main samurai guy, Toranaga, the woman, and the English guy, like how it's the whole relationship is taking place inside of the translation and how like that's amazing. And when you think about like historically, like, and even like today, like how things get lost in translation, like entire cultural nuance and like human experience, like filtered through like different perspectives it's mind blowing.
And I love how there's like the cultural like interplay is really cool because you have traditional Japanese, then she's like a Christian Japanese, right?
Yeah, which I didn't know that was a thing.
From what my research has shown, it was very rare. It was not something that was big. And there were wars from my research that I had done prior between like the Zen samurai were like not cool at all with the Christian samurai at all. And I think they wiped them out. And then you have this interloper, right? So you have this interloper who's on the island and it's like, whoa. So very, very cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it, man. It's great when something comes up and it's like, It's like, yeah, all right, I can dig my teeth into this. And I hate that it's funny because it's the way it used to be back in the day, but like how they only release them 1 week at a time. Like I have like the desire to just rip through the whole thing, and then I watch it, and then I got to wait another week, and it's like, but that's how they.
What episode are you on right now?
I'm up to date. I've watched them all.
Is it done for the season?
No,
I haven't.
Well, no, I believe there's 10 episodes. I just finished episode number 7.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool. One of the things that I like about the samurai is that, and I was telling you this, is that what's really fascinating about the samurai is they were outlawed as a noble class. So they were a noble class in Japan. Like they were like, you are it's like a caste system. This is your class. Yeah. You're part of the samurai, right? And within that samurai class, they had very specific rules. Like they were not allowed to engage in business at all.
Interesting.
And so when they were outlawed,
they were only allowed to be like bodyguards and soldiers.
What's that? When they were outlawed,
they were only able to be like bodyguards and soldiers.
And soldiers, yeah. And they were like part of the noble class. So they were educated and it wasn't until they were outlawed that they were allowed. Then it was like, well, what are we going to do now? Well, many of them, I don't want to say most, many of them went into business. And then, so I think it was by like 1920 or so, like 40% of Japanese businessmen had hailed from that samurai class. And so what I found and very, very successful, what I found so fascinating about it was they used that discipline that they had and they translated it in those principles of their training, and they translated that into business and they applied that to business. And so when I was in business school, we did a lot of case studies where we studied like Toyota and business practices of many Japanese businesses that were very successful, Sony, and how they applied those principles to their workforce. And so that was really, really cool how there's kind of that lineage there. And I was telling you, this was a big influence on even today, our business culture today, on Steve Jobs. He went to Japan, studied, he was a big, big fan of Sony. And, look at Apple today. They're the biggest, if not one of the biggest, companies in the world and most successful.
They're like a government.
They're a government, man. And
they're like a government.
And it really hails from the ethos of Steve Jobs. He, especially his second time around, he created this culture which was based on that. It was based on what he learned from the Japanese, and even went so far that there's a story that he went and saw that a lot of Japanese in the factories, they all wore a uniform. And so he came back to Apple and he wanted everyone at Apple to wear a uniform. And they were like, are you fucking crazy? We're not wearing a uniform. That you're nuts. And so, but he did. He found out who designed the uniforms for one of the factories that he went to, and that's why he wore a uniform. That guy designed Miyake. Yeah, he designed Steve Jobs' uniform of his half turtleneck and the jeans.
And he bought like 1,000 pairs of the jeans and like 1,000 turtlenecks. That shit's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And so, but the reason, do you know why they had uniform? The real reason they had uniforms in Japan?
Well, I'm making the assumption so that the focus is all in the work and not in, you can stay on focus. Like you're not, there's no, that's what people talk about, like the Steve Jobs method. But what is that the original method?
No, and I like that. I love that, man. I went and found this shirt. When I found this shirt, I went and bought 20 copies. I was like, I want 20 of these. I want to be able to wear
I do that all the time.
Multiple copies of jeans. I don't want to think about what I got to wear, you know?
I do that all the time.
But I think it simplifies it that way. But one of the reasons that the drivers for them having uniforms in Japan is because you have to remember that after World War II, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those cities were destroyed and wiped off the map. And so the workers didn't even have clothes.
Oh, wow.
And so they had to give them clothes. And when they gave them clothes, they just gave them uniforms.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So maybe as a secondary benefit, it was, we have uniformity. We do, calisthenics every day. They're very, very much a much more cohesive society,
Have you ever been there? Have you ever been to Japan?
No, and I can't wait. That's the goal, is to go this next year.
I want to go, man. My kid, like my kids, they talk about it all the time. My sons love Japanese food. They watch anime and stuff, and we're talking about maybe doing a trip for my wife's 40th birthday.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
So your kid likes Japanese food?
Oh yeah, they love it.
Okay.
They love it.
Next time you go, you bring them to go eat sushi?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay. Next time you go in a sushi restaurant, ask for natto. That'll be the test. Okay. Tell them,
that?
If you like natto, then you're Japanese. You can go to Japan and say you love Japanese food. So
what is natto?
Natto it's usually never ever on the menu. It's one of my favorite foods, but it's usually never on the menu. And if you ask for it, usually the sushi chefs will have it back there for their own meals, but they don't put it on the menu. Very rarely do Americans eat natto, but natto is a superfood. It's fermented soybeans. And it's one of my favorite foods of all. I started eating it when I was 18. I had a friend who had a Japanese restaurant, and he turned me on to it, and I was like, this is amazing. But I will tell you what most people say is it's like soybeans, and you stick your chopsticks in it, and as you lift it, it looks like cat puke. And some people have told me that it not only looks like cat puke, but it tastes like what they think cat puke would taste like and smells like it. I don't think so. I love it, but I have a weird palate. So
that sounds like a rough one.
But that is the test. If you say you like Japanese food, then you gotta like natto. Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. It's supposed to be like a superfood. It's really good for your gut biome.
That's cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. So yeah, I'm digging the series, man. I can't wait to dig in more to it. I got sidetracked because I started watching Three Body Problem, which is one of my favorite.
I'm watching that too.
The books are so good. I read the books years ago, but I honestly think the series is better than the books, man. I'm blown away by
how many books are there?
3.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of the books or the story or anything. But I've watched the 2 episodes. And it's amazing. And coincidentally, I was at a meeting yesterday, and I just found out that they are building a collider here on Long Island at Brookhaven National Lab. And there's like this giant project to put a collider here on Long Island. And I was like, oh, that's it, man. They're going to fucking zap us right out of existence. I'm like, next thing you know, we have those fucking helmets.
I know, right? I wonder how big the collider is going to be. Is it going to be bigger than the Large Hadron Collider, or what's the idea?
The guy who was talking about it was like, it's the biggest one in the world. But if you know Long Island, it's very possible that the guy's exaggerating, has no idea what the fuck he's talking about. But he said, it's the biggest one in the world, bro. And I'm like, all right, let's find out.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll keep you posted. but it's very interesting.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm a amateur physicist, which means I know nothing.
You're a hobbyist.
Yes, exactly. I know
Yeah.
nothing, but I watch a whole lot of PBS Space Time. And so I don't know if you've seen, to me, it's the best explanation for physics. And so it's for people like me who don't know much about physics.
It's called it's PBS Space Time. That's what it's called.
Mm-hmm. It's
I'll check that out.
Unbelievable. It's one of those things. I remember when I got Stephen Hawking's book, whatever, Universe in a Nutshell, right? And I remember reading that book and just going, what the fuck is he talking about? And I could not figure, like, I literally, Jesse, I could not even figure any part of it out. I was blown away. And so, but then when PBS Spacetime came around, I was able to watch a video, right? And some of the videos, like on the double slit experiment, and they go into all that and quantum physics. I mean, it's so mind bending, right? That it's hard to comprehend. But what I like about PBS Spacetime is I can watch the video 100 times. And so by the 50th time you watch the video, you start going, oh, I get it now. I get it because, it starts to click because it's so counterintuitive, and I can't even imagine, we're talking, you and I, hobbyists, are trying to understand physics from a theoretical perspective, not trying to do the math. Can you imagine having that brain that could do the math?
No.
Oh my gosh.
No, I think that's like, those people are like one step from the line of insanity. Like they're like one step under. Like you go too far,
Dude.
you ride that line too far, and that's it. You're going right to the cuckoo house.
Okay, so talking about business, which we were talking about in the Samurai, I just started listening to, or I'm almost done listening to it. I started it this week, and it really sucked me in, was Walter Isaacson's book on Elon Musk. Have you read?
I did. Yeah, I did the whole thing. It was great.
Holy moly. That dude, I had no idea. And he's such a cultural figure that I had these preconceived notions of him. And this really kind of opened my eyes. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but my takeaway from the book was I didn't understand him, right? That I thought I did, just from everything. What blew me away was his absolute commitment and true commitment to saving humanity. Like, that's the driving force of his whole MO. Like, he, as a little kid, what I loved about him was that he loves sci-fi like me, right? I'm a sci-fi junkie since I was a little kid. He was driven by sci-fi, and
video game
fanatic. Game fanatic. I love video games, and absolutely into sci-fi, and that has driven him. And so I didn't realize that the reason he wanted to start Tesla Motors and talked about it even when he was younger was because he wanted to save us from the environment, humanity from the environment. I was like, that's cool. Then that he felt like humanity might face some kind of a crisis. So he started SpaceX to try and get humanity to colonize outside of Earth. I was like, that's freaking pretty cool, and then, and the guy is really, really smart. And then how absolutely Asperger's he is about this focus that he has, that just nothing can get in his way. And I found that to be incredibly instructive for business, right? And inspiring. Like, at some point you have to say, you're with any business, you're going to get punched in the face 5 million times and everybody's going to tell you no. Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You got
Is that your experience?
without a doubt. And I think what's interesting with him is that, like, you know, there's this thing in our culture to where, like, everybody demonizes billionaires. Everybody, you know, you a billionaire, it must be this corrupt piece of shit who's taking advantage of people. But this is a guy who came from another country, and despite the fact that his father did have money once upon a time and then didn't have it, like, he came here with practically nothing. And
that's what I got out of it. It was like, no. He didn't come from money. He came here with
He did not come from money. And
his dad was kind of a scam artist who had money at some time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not talking about Ivy League blue blood.
No, not even close. And I think after you do that book, you realize that this guy's not about money at all. Money is nothing. Money has nothing to do with it. It's just, this is a guy who from childhood, from being a child, put in his brain, I am going to be the savior of the universe. And like, and like, you know, like you and I both had our superhero fantasies and you know what I mean? But eventually we grew up and we got jobs and whatever. But like, this fucking guy didn't, and was like, yeah, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to do it. Yeah. You know what? Fuck you. I'm going to do it. And it's just literally powered his way through like completely revolutionizing multiple industries. I mean, it's absolutely, he's like outrageous.
It went into his brain. It went into his brain like someone with Asperger's who could not let it go. Right. Yeah, that 100%. Is really the key to understanding him, was that I must do everything I can to give my life to save humanity. And I don't necessarily think it was like a Messiah complex where if I don't do it, it won't happen, but more like the greatest thing that I can do in my life is to try to advance that cause, right? If everybody jumped on this, then we would be okay. But if people don't jump on this, and really, what is the use of my life if I don't give it to saving humanity? And what, through crisis after crisis, he could not let it go. I mean, I could tell you that if I had that kind of money, I'd be like, don't find me in the south of France. Good luck, humanity. You know, I am way, there's no way. So, but he could not let it go. And because of that, doubling down, that's why he's so wealthy, because he just kept putting his chips on the table to save humanity. You know?
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
And I think what also is so interesting about him is that he, like all of the companies, like he almost has like a disdain for sales and marketing. Like his only concern is product development. And in his mind, if I pour every ounce of resources into product development, I will convince the marketplace because I'm just building the better mousetrap. And you know, whereas like you think of these billionaires and you think of like these corporate people, and like they're all obsessed over sales and marketing. They're obsessed with the customer, you know, getting the customers in. But yeah, very interesting, because like you said, I went into it too with kind of a preconceived notion of him and came out the other end like, I might be a fan of this guy.
Right? I don't know if you just saw, I just saw today that, and this was in the book, and you want to talk about having just not giving a crap about sales and marketing, that it looks like he might have just cut the plans and got rid of the idea of doing a $25,000 car, which would be huge for sales and marketing. Why? Yeah. Because he wants to focus only on robo-taxis. His idea is that, you know, fully automated driving cars are safer for humanity than a what would help humanity more? A $25,000 car, or a car that is driven autonomously and won't get it? Because, you know, look at how many, you know, deaths every year come from people driving. So if we can get rid of, that was crazy.
I see that line of logic, but I don't personally agree with it. I think the whole like Like, have you ever heard of like that conference Davos that's like in like Switzerland or something, and like all like the super rich people go there? Like the head guy of that, who's like fucking Dr. Evil, the guy like basically reminds me of, and he was saying something along the lines of like, you will all own nothing, but you will all be happy, and like that is, it's a scary thing to me because like unless as a species we can recreate how our culture works, like if we can like literally like redefine the paradigm of how we interact with each other, the whole concept of like there's going to be a very small group of people who are going to have everything under control and they're going to take care of it for us, like that's never worked. I mean, maybe it will work one day eventually, but it's a little scary.
It's Brave New World, Aldous Huxley. You know?
Yeah.
You know, I think you're right. I think the fabric of society, you know, is so
has to
built
change.
upon. Yeah, and I think that the ethos of our society is based on, you know, humans developed 10,000 years ago the ability to farm, you know, agriculture. We became an agrarian society from hunter-gatherers. What does that mean? Before we were agrarian society with hunter-gatherers, there was no property ownership. And so as an economic system takes hold, everything changes. Even the mythology and the values and the beliefs. And so when we shifted as humans from hunter-gatherers, where we moved from place to place to place, there was no need for property ownership, right? And there was no need for keeping score.
Yeah.
But once we became an agrarian society, then it was like, whoa. This land is very valuable, so someone should own it. Yeah. And I'm going to, and then what did we do? Our mythology started to change, where instead of it was about harmony, if you look at the myths of ancient culture, hunter-gatherer cultures, it was all about harmony with nature, you know, the moon and this, and they talk to each other and this. And that's where Christianity, if you look at the Bible is all of the parables and all of that are all about agrarian myth. Reap what you sow, blah, 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 right? And so then we started to value hard labor. And so everything started to shift for these last 10,000 years. And it started to get in line with that economic system. And we even, you know, they're good and bad with that. We started to have marriage because marriage allowed us to have title within two
merging
people.
Assets.
That's merging assets and then giving the assets on. There were no assets before then. Then giving those assets to the children that were next in line. And then we had inheritance and all these laws came about, and slavery. There was no slavery. There was no need for slavery with hunter-gatherers, right? So slavery,
it's pretty fucking crazy.
Yes.
It's all made up. Everything is
made up. It's all stories. It's all fucking stories that we take, and some people will hear us talking about this and get so offended. How could you talk about, it's like, do a little research, man. Everything you hold dear is just a story that's been passed on to you.
What's so interesting to me is that, like, all you have to do is look into history to see how obvious that is. But, like, it's so obvious to me that, like, our modern culture does not use historical context ever. Like, everything is, like, on crisis mode all the time, and people like really only go back a very short, you know, whereas like we've been through so many versions of the same thing so many times, and like it's so obvious, but yet it just seems to not be obvious to everyone, and it's really weird.
But I think it's kind of like what we talked about last episode, where we were talking about the importance of a musha shugyo and living in a foreign culture like you did, where you lived in the Dominican Republic. That was totally foreign to you, right?
Yeah.
For 100%. Me, living in Sicily was totally foreign to me, and I became like, whoa, I don't know everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know everything. These people live completely different to me. They think completely different to me. It's beautiful.
And being comfortable with that, being comfortable with the concept of I don't know everything, that I think is the problem that a lot of people have.
That's right. That's right. And so, you know, when you're talking about, I think what you're talking about, like with Davos, at that Davos, what he's talking about is a complete shift away from this agrarian mindset of, you know, you reap what you sow and your value is based on how hard you work. That is about to be completely upended when there will be no more need for work. And what the prophets of are saying, right? Andrew Yang being one of them who ran for president, is we are very quickly, and we need to get comfortable, and we need to start having this dialogue with the fact that work is going to change in such a way that hard work is not needed anymore. It's not going to be needed. And there are going to be a lot of people that are going to bristle about that. Even people who consider themselves atheists, they don't realize that capitalism, which I think is a great thing, but we could be reaching the end of capitalism. And capitalism in the sense that, you know, we value and we reward and we look at and we put people on pedestals for how hard they work. That could be coming to an end. And the very fabric of our society is going to be freaking challenged. And people are really going to freak out about it.
Well, so, you know what's interesting is one of my companies is an agency that does outsourced business development and like sales automation for like B2B businesses. And we, like, back in the day, people used to cold call, and you know, hand a salesman a business card, you'd give him a pat on the ass, and you'd send them out, you know, into the street, and you have to go bring people donuts and flowers and whatever. And now so much of this work, not only is it outsourced, but it's done through automation and all sorts of like digital tactics to make it scalable, cheaper, more efficient. And we do that for a lot of people. But what's so interesting is that when I'm talking to some of our clients who, like, especially like some of the older ones that are like in their 50s and 60s, and you can see like the friction and the tension when it comes to like the paradigm shift of like the way that they used to do stuff is not the way that it's being done. And they're almost blind to the potential ways that they could use these tools to better their position. And they forego those benefits for just being rooted in, no, you're not going to tell me, man. I've been doing what I've been doing for fucking 30 years and I built a $20 million company and it's so obvious. And it's like people get so rooted in what they think they know that you start going at that, and it literally, and I think it's the same thing that you see like in the news cycles. Like, I mean, you got people like my parents' age, like in their 70s and stuff, and like they had like 3 news channels. And like, they, you know, it was on at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. And now you got information coming at a rate that's never been seen before. And I think people are losing their minds because they're like, is it possible that everything that I held true my whole life is either a lie or a hoax, or, you know what I mean? Like, and you're watching that
across
so many categories.
That's right. And so it's that whole martial arts thing of flow like water. And what happens is people's minds calcify. Some people's minds calcify at 15 or 50, whatever it is. But, you know, that's what I love about martial arts. It's like, don't talk about the way things used to be because it's irrelevant. All that's matter is you're sparring right now, and what happened in your last match or whatever, it's irrelevant. You're here now.
What are you going to do now?
Flow like water. Just let it go. Let go of all of it. That's what the true mental training of the samurai was meant to impart, was that ability to not to break apart that calcification of the mind. Because what they found was that if you can't flow in the middle of combat, you're dead.
Yeah.
And it all is in the mind. You know, I love this. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, how, you know, we have two inner worlds. We have our inner world here inside, and we have our outer world. There are two worlds. And so we've got to, you know, mainly most people focus on the outer world, right? I want to change this. I want to change this. I want to change this. But what I found, especially working with people on weight loss and things like that, they're trying to, even the body is outer. If you can't change inside here and all you're focusing on is out here, it never works. It never friggin' works. And those people a lot of those people end up getting on TRT, steroids, whatever, now Ozempic and all that shit. And they start taking drugs when really they've got to start focusing on in here. It's harder.
Yeah, because they're doing all that shit for external validation. They're doing it for other people to come to them and say, "Hey, wow, you look good," rather than understanding the most important relationship is the relationship you have with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. So true,
crazy,
man. And it's got to start.
What's it all about?
What's it all
about, man?
Yeah, but we're reaching that point where, and I think it's the most fascinating part of where we are as a species is we're about to go through. We're on the cusp of, you know, what is considered really a singularity. So a singularity is where you can't even fathom what things were like before then. Like human beings before language, what would that be like?
Yeah.
I guess we would be like monkeys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We kind of reached a singularity in regards to the internet, right? It's so hard to remember what it was like to be so disconnected.
Yeah.
But now with the exponential change in technology,
it's going turbojets.
We're about to hit another singularity. At least what Andrew Yang and what all these people are talking about is this shit is coming fast, and it is going to make the need for human work almost. I mean, what else is Elon working on? Optimus, a robot.
Yeah.
You know, so now they've already coupled together a robot with extreme strength that humans can never touch, extreme dexterity, extreme speed, limitless endurance, no injuries, so where exactly when this, and let me tell you, what I heard about the Vision Pro is something that I really try. Remember Vision Pro VR? Yeah. What someone said about that, they said, listen, this Vision Pro is the worst iteration of the Vision Pro you will ever see. Wow. It will only get better.
I haven't played with it. Have you?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't played. You have one?
I'm a tech geek. My buddy has one. I have the MetaQuest 3, the latest MetaQuest one. And so I think it's great. I don't live in it. I don't want to live in it. I like watching movies in it. It's like having a personal IMAX.
You know? Wow. That's interesting.
It's cool. But so Jesse, it's only going to get these technologies, these AI are only going to get better. The ones we're seeing right now will be the worst that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so we're on the precipice of, dude, it's all going to change.
Who knows?
Man.
I know. It's scary. It's exciting. It is exciting. And I always you always hear people like shit talk it and say like, and I try not to do that. I try my best. And we talk about like on our other podcast all the time, because a lot of what we do, deals with social media and you can go on and on about all the negative impacts and stuff. But like, I try to look at it like, who knows? There's going to be, all of the bad shit is obvious, but we're not even talking about all of the brilliant discoveries that we're going to make, all of the new opportunities that are going to come into play. Everybody's worried about the old things disappearing, but nobody's talking about what is going to be new and good that we have not even seen yet. And there's going to be plenty. I hope.
I personally am very optimistic about it. I think that, technology for the most part, will unlock like amazing things, miraculous things. We're seeing it. I think at some point, hopefully, this is where the optimism comes in, that we can crack, free energy, free clean energy with fusion, something like that.
Yeah.
So, once that happens, once we crack fusion and we have unlimited free energy, the world, that will be a singularity from which we can't even imagine.
Yeah, sure.
We couldn't even imagine what the internet was going to do back in the days, remember, of AOL and dial up and all that shit. We couldn't imagine what the world was going to be like it is now, where we are, I could not, I remember being in Sicily and having my phone and being like, I'm exploring this island on my motorcycle. I could be, if I was trying to do this with a map, like dude, I couldn't and translate and be able to talk to people who don't speak English and figure out where I am. I'd have been in trouble every third day. I'd have been lost, helicopters coming to get me, because I was always on my motorcycle in the middle of that island. So, if it enabled me something silly like that, not silly, it was something important to me, but it enabled me to have that adventure for a year. Just think where it's going to be, in the next 10 years for your kids. Have you
read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance?
Oh my God, that inspired me my whole life, man. I had that, and I used to walk around in college with that book in my backpack, and it inspired me one day to buy a motorcycle that I saw on the side of the road at a garage sale for $200.
Oh, wow.
And then to jump on that motorcycle 6 weeks before my marriage, right? I was supposed to get married I was getting married, and the wedding was coming up, and there was all this planning, and I was just like, I cannot deal with any more of this planning. I was in New Orleans. So without telling anybody, I woke up at 5 a.m. with that book in my backpack, and I stuffed the backpack and I rode all the way to the West Coast all by myself. Wow. It was amazing. One of the greatest adventures of my life. No cell phone, no GPS, no nothing.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Could only imagine that. That book, major inspiration on me. Read it like 3 or 4 times. And my musical project that I have, I built the whole thing around this character that's called Phaedrus. And like I have like this whole narrative that I'm like working on to like build out this universe of this musical thing that we do over here around this character Phaedrus, and a lot of it is impacted from that book is just such a
what'd you get out
incredible of that what I think the most powerful thing that I got out of that book, outside of like the different types of like the romantic thinking versus like the analytical thinking, which was never a concept that I thought about until like I read it, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, I'm obviously a romantic thinker and not a fucking analytical thinker. But what really hit me from that book is how Phaedrus, throughout the entire thing, he's reaching for the answer, and he goes too far. But yet, ultimately, who was the one that was really insane? Was society insane for not accepting a searcher and not accepting someone who's questioning? Like it was like this kind of balance between like there's that line from that Pink Floyd song that when he's talking about Shine On You Crazy Diamond, when he's talking about the original singer Syd Barrett, and he's like, you reach for the secret too soon. And like I always felt that connection with the character of Phaedrus, like there is no answer, but at the same time, I think the best people are the people that are willing to keep asking the questions and challenge, the norm. Because how are you ever going to find your own place if you don't keep asking the questions to ultimately figure out like what's right for you? So like he gets to the end of this journey and it's like he's insane and his son has the psychological problems, but what's really the thing that's insane? Like this system that's trying to relegate us all to the same fucking thing? Or the fact that we're all unique and different, and it's up to us to go on this Chautauqua or whatever he calls it to figure out who we are and what the fuck we want, you know?
The Mushashugyo, right?
Mushashugyo, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. That's really, really cool. That's rad.
Unbelievable
That
book.
is really
Unbelievable
cool.
book. I don't
love
know why they never made a movie. They should make a movie of that.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe
know.
it's too heavy.
I don't know. Mm-mm. Someone was just asking me, why haven't they made a movie? I think it was of The Alchemist. I love The Alchemist.
Bro, I read that book and I moved to I read that book. It was 2005. I had left working for my dad. I can't believe I never told you this. I left working for my father. I was like, fuck this shit. This guy's crazy. I don't want to work in the family business. I don't want to do that. I met these dudes from Israel in the mall, and I hooked up with this Jewish guy who had a kiosk selling Japanese fighting fish in like those old 70s glass block windows that had like a self-sustaining ecosystem or some shit like that. And the dudes next to me at a kiosk were these two young guys my age from Israel who were selling like, remember that that Nintendo controller that plugged into the AV outlets on your TV and it give you all the Nintendo games, like the first iteration of that?
Yes.
So they were selling that. I'm in the mall.
Basically a knockoff, right? It's like
exactly.
It's a pirated version of all these,
Of all the So this was holiday season 2004, and for October, November, December, 7 days a week, I'm in the mall trying to sell these fucking Japanese fighting fish, and I'm reading The Alchemist, and these dudes next to me are like, they're like little guys who just got out of like the IDF, and they're like, bro, you fucking American people are stupid. Sell. And like we become like best buds. And at the end of the season, the guy's like, my friend has a cart in Burbank, California. None of us are an American. We can't register a business, but we can go make a ton of money. We need an American guy. And I just finished reading the book. And I'm like, yeah, bro, my personal omen. I'm going. So I go home to my mom and I'm like, Mom, I met these guys from Israel in the mall, and I'm moving to California to start a business with them. And 5 days later, I'm in the fucking car. We're driving to fucking LA.
Wow.
No lie.
Hell yeah.
I was 23 years old.
Dude, that's so rad. That's amazing. That's how you got to live life, man. That's what I'm all about. It's like, hell yeah.
I guess that's why we get along,
Exactly. It's like, where's the next adventure? I always say this. I hate qualifying people as one thing or the other, but in my view of life, there are adventurers and there are farmers, and most people are farmers. I'm a fucking adventurer. I'm like, because everything that I ever experienced, everything that I ever achieved always lay on the other side of fear. Like I always had to be, you got to fucking take chances, man. You want that gold medal, you better friggin' register and start training, right? But it's going to be scary. Right?
And then you realize on the other side of fear, you realize that what you were afraid of was never that bad. Like once you go through it and you realize the anticipation of the result, the fear of the unknown, like once you get through it, you realize like, man, it was nothing. It's like that, there's that Mark Twain quote that's like, of all the tragedies that I've suffered, most of them never even happened. You know what I mean? So I'm paraphrasing, but something like that, to where it's like we freak ourselves out over not knowing, but it's like you got to push yourself past that shit and have experiences, because how else can you know? How else can you know what you think?
And I tell you what, Jesse, and I'm sure you can really speak to this too, is that what you have to realize is that, part of our conditioning as social creatures, as humans, we're all humans, we're all social creatures, we're very tribal, is our innate genetic need for acceptance is really one of the most limiting factors that we have. Yeah. And that we have to be with the one thing that I think that people have to be able to push through that they have difficulty, they can't even put a finger on it, is that their need for acceptance is much more powerful than they want to give it credit to. And you have to be able to disarm that thing, because when you are an adventurer, all the farmers around you, they are threatened by that. And so they will come, even successful people will come out and talk shit on you. And so there are haters that are going to hate, and you have to be able to say, I don't give a fuck, right? That was one thing that came up, I think, with Elon Musk, and maybe it was his Asperger's, just didn't care. Just doesn't care. You know what I mean?
Did you see the interview he did with on CNN or something when they were talking about Bob Iger from Disney, when they were talking about pulling the funding from Twitter? And he said, yeah, hey, read my lips. I don't give a fuck. Take your money. It's like, wow. This guy's amazing.
But I think you have to be able to you do have to take that into account. Okay, you're going to get hate. You're going to get critics. The farmers, the ones who are going to sit on the couch, are always going to criticize, because you bring up something in them that of their cowardice and their inability to take chances. And so you got to push through that too. And so, that to me is a really important part of being an adventurer and taking chances and growth. Because without taking chances, you cannot grow. You've got to fail. You only learn from failure. You got to embrace failure and go, that's just okay.
Bro, you got me fired up right now. I want to hop on a plane to Miami and be like, yo, let's do something. Let's go.
Come on, brother. Come on, man. Come on.